So why care about UI and UX? So both of UI stands for user interface and UX means user experience. UX is like what the experience is going to be like for people that are going through your app. What buttons they have to press, what work they have to do in your app. The user interface is what the visuals part of it. And generally people focus on UX first, but UI can build off of UX. It can good UI can subconsciously guide us to the take the actions that the app designers want us to take. And uh, one important thing about UI is that it doesn't have to look sleek or clean. It has a purpose, which is to improve the UX. So here are the four fundamentals of UI design. They're essential for making a thoughtful UI. So let's start first with user flow. So this is an example of what a user flow diagram looks like. It uh, walks uh, it walks you through what actions a user must take to accomplish the goal that you want. And so it's like a plan that designers build to try to optimize their app. Like for example here, if we want to build a checkout feature for an online store, we could start with the user adding the item to the cart and maybe end with them submitting their order. And in between all of that, we would fill out what types of actions the user has to take, like check if they're logged in. If they're not, have them make an account. And the error is missing here, but then it would go back into filling in the card and address. So it's really just for organization. Uh, there's also wireframes, which are used to help plan out your UI layouts. And for wireframes, I would say uh, plan out plan out the placement and like sizing of your elements. The goal here is to try out as many ideas as fast as you can. So just like drafting your app design. And later we're going to use Figma to make one. So now we go over to our design system. Uh, Here. Normally a design system would look something like this, really fancy. What it is basically is just a big uh list of all of the assets and materials you're gonna use in your app, like the fonts, the colors, the buttons, stuff like that. Um, but that's for like professional uh UI designers. Right now, I would say just think of it as a big plan, nothing too fancy. So the first ingredient in our list is colors. The colors in your app are usually the first thing that users will see. And you want to use colors that match the atmosphere of your app. Like say if I'm making a fancy tech app, I would use maybe desaturated and dark colors. So I would say to practice thinking of what atmosphere your app will have, like using colors to fit the atmosphere of your app, I would say just look at examples for your favorite apps. Think like the GitHub app that has the dark and desaturated colors that I'm talking about. And when creating color palettes for your app, feel free to experiment with your colors, value, hue, and saturation. Those are the three big things that make up every color. And there's different color schemes that you can incorporate into your app. There's complementary. We all know that one. It's two distinct colors, opposite side of the color wheel. And what it's good for is making your elements stand out from each other. And there's also triadic, which has the colors in different thirds of the color wheel. And triadic color schemes are generally very vibrant. They'll give your app a lot more life. And see some more color schemes. Let's click on the link, copy and paste it. This is a really useful program for choosing your colors. It's got a bunch of color harmonies, stuff like that. Another color scheme is monochromatic, and that's basically just like one color in different shades. That would be useful for making like a very consistent app design. So I'm gonna say right now I'm gonna use analogous. That's like that'll give us a good spectrum of colors to choose from. And you know what? I like that. I'll keep that later for when we're making our wireframe in Figma. Let's go presenting again. So a thing with essential part of design is balance. So for balancing colors, there's a composition rule called the 60-30-10 rule, which determines how much of each color generally should fill up the screen. So 60% of your app should use your primary color, which will be a desaturated color, just because it would take up so much of the screen. You don't want like your user's eyes to be fried off with all the saturation. And then 30% of your app will use the secondary color, which could be the primary color, just like a bit lighter and more saturated. And then 10% of your app will use the tertiary color, which should be the most saturated and most vibrant. Maybe if you're doing like complementary color scheme, then the 60% and the 30% could be one color, and then the 10% could be the complementary color stuff. So yeah, that's the kind of things you should be thinking about with color composition. Let me get some water. And next is fonts. And so for fonts, I would prioritize readability. That's a big part of UX is accessibility. You never want to make the user feel like alienated in using your app. So a good resource for choosing your fonts is the Google Fonts website right here. And some good examples of fonts that are both readable and have a bit of personality to them. I like the Interfont and the Space Grotesque font. Those they look like really standard fonts that and a bunch of apps use them. Now, that's not all that's there in the design system. Remember, there's also buttons and forms and in other kinds of inputs and images, stuff like that. For those, just remember to make them consistent with the rest of the app in terms of looks. And moving on to design elements. Now that we have all of our tools, we can start thinking about how we can bring them all together into design. And the design elements are going to be principles of how we should lay out and stylize our app to better fulfill the purposes of UI, which again is to subconsciously guide people and improve the user experience. So first off, there's visual hierarchy, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You want to, in one way or another, show that there's an order of importance in an app. And a common way to do this is just through size alone. And if you take a look at there, that's the reason why we have different like thicknesses and font sizes for our headings and subheadings and bodies. It's a way for us to organize them. Another one is contrast, and it's how much an element stands out from its surroundings. And using high contrast can make them stand out, and with low contrast, you can set your decorations and flare in the app to be low contrast, not so as not to overpower the user's eyes. Another one's consistency. So being consistent in your app design lets users get used to your apps faster by establishing like uh rules and stuff like that. Users have less to learn. So like keep in mind when making your app, be sure to set all of the elements in pre-organized order so that the users aren't like caught off guard with every new page they visit. Like an example of this is in web browsers where the navigation arrows are always in the top left. Imagine that now that how annoying it would be if users had to find like search for the errors every time they click to a new page, stuff like that. And but also neglecting consistency in some important elements can be an example of using contrast. Like say you put an important element, like you usually put it in the top left side, but now you put in the bottom right side, it'll signal to users like, oh, why is this different? What's so special about it? And it'll catch their eye. So, but ultimately, it's up to you to decide what makes your app element stand out the most. Here's some more examples of consistency, like using the same color palette, keeping using the same font, keeping buttons in the same location, stuff like that. Okay, now here's simplicity. So take a look at the app, the Macy's app on the left. It's like bombarding you with information, right? And now the Etsy app on the right, it just has a couple of elements at a time. It's not like overwhelming. And also there's feedback. And feedback relates most to inputs. It's how the website, it's how the app lets you know that something is registered. It's giving the elements reactions to user input to keep them engaged. An option of feedback is right here in the GIF, the button. You can see not only does it like go down when the mouse clicks on it to show that the action was registered by the app, but it also lights up when you hover over it to let you know that you're on it. That's another example of feedback. So let's go over to the password game to show how it uses feedback to guide users. Whatever. This is a fun game. Uh it like satirizes the password generators by like how uh complicated they make setting a password sometimes. So see here, I type in something, boom, that's feedback. It's telling me my password must be at least 5 characters. Oh yeah, another example of feedback is how the border of this box increases its thickness just a little bit to know that I'm selected in the box, and also how the, what is it? The little line shows where I'm at. So yeah, I'm not gonna get too far in this password game, just showing off how it implements feedback. Let me present again. Okay, so those were all of the design elements. If you keep these in mind when you're designing how your app's gonna look, then it'll take you far. So now we're moving on to Figma. So with Figma, as I said before, it's a design tool to build mock-ups of apps and websites and a bunch of other things. And what I like about Figma is that it's easy for beginners to use. There's only a couple tools available at first, but even those can just take you a long way. And not only that, if you want more, or if you're getting stuck on inspiration, stuff like that, it has a big community that produces like templates and other resources you can use, plugins, stuff like that. So let's go to Figma right now and make a weather frame. So my idea is we're just going to make a mock weather app. Actually, before that, let's go into MIT App Inventor because a later part of the lesson is going to be moving our design to MIT App Inventor. Let's make a new project, call it whatever. Uh, tip about the MIT App Inventor like screen is that these are the dimensions of the uh, screen. So with that, we can begin to start making our app design in Figma. So first off is frames. So frames in Figma are every part of your what every other part of your element is going to be on. So it's like the background. Another thing is that you can put frames inside of frames. If I draw one in here, makes it and puts it in the hierarchy, right? That's right here. And the other use of frames is to make sure that your elements don't go outside of your specified bounds. Now, so see that the frame here is this big, right? So if I draw a rectangle and put it inside the frame and I try to move it out, it's going to get cut off. So that's another application of frames. I don't want that right now though. So we made a frame, we made a shape. Let's go, hold on. Let me try looking at uh weather design. So I'm feeling something like this. I like that. Let's change the color of our background first. getting in the way. So in here's the fill, and that's what you're gonna manipulate to change the color of your background and every other element in Figma too. Let me remember. Something like this. That's good for now. Actually, a little bit darker. So let's add some text to Figma. This could just be the name of our app, weather app. Go down here. This is this section where it says text. That's where you're going to be managing all of the properties of it. Let's set it to align to the center there. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Did that work? It's not working. There it is. Let's put that near the center. So remember when I was mentioning plugins in Figma? You can just go to this. It's like the bunch of little shapes up in the top bar, and you can actually search some plugins you want. And let's see, for a weather app, we're gonna need some icons. So I'm just gonna, whoops, what just happened? Icons. It will take a second to load. And boom. From community, it's gonna give you a bunch of different plugins that you can use. Now I'm just going to use the first one. Let's run it. All right. We have a bunch of icons. Actually, hold on. It looks something like this. This is a prototype that I made earlier. So let's say that sunny for me right now. Let's say we want a sun symbol to display our current day. We do one of these, put it in the center. We can make it white to for contrast because our background's dark. Oh yeah, I forgot. You have to actually, for this plugin, they're images, so you can't set color the regular way. What you would do for this plugin is go to it. We're gonna search sun again, and here's where you can change the color. So I'm gonna do something like light gray. Since this is going to be for today's weather, I would say that it's got to be pretty important, right, in a weather app. So using visual hierarchy again, we're gonna make this section the biggest part of our app. Now, a thing with Figma is, see how I'm resizing it and it's not keeping its aspect ratio at all? The outside container is changing up a bunch. Well, if you hold shift, there, perfect square. And we can just make it like this big, put it around here. Boom. we're gonna add some more text now, just saying like maybe what temperature it is. Let me check what temperature it is on my end. It's like 91 degrees. Make that a little bit bigger. I mean, smaller. Actually, hold on. Remember how we saw that in MIT App Inventor, it said that the font size was 505 pixels tall and 320 pixels wide. Let's resize our frame to fit that. So 505, 320. Set the height here in this giant frame section. 320 and 505. So a lot stouter. Let's resize. Shift. Okay. Let's put this in the back in the middle. Put this back where it belongs. Let's put this near the top. Let's make some more attributes about today. Maybe we could say like sunny. I'm in Florida, it's pretty humid, so obviously 91 degrees doesn't just feel like 91 degrees. I wish it would. We would say maybe feels like 97. This this information is a little bit less important than the actual degrees, so we'll make it a little bit smaller. Again, that's it, establishing the visual hierarchy. All right. You don't really need that much more information. Let's make a box for all of the rest of the days. Something like that. Oh yeah. Also in Figma, you don't have to set your elements to be just one color. You can actually use a gradient. If you just click here, right now we're on solid fill. Oh yeah, we can also fill it up with an image or a video. Well, let's choose gradient right now. Uh, let's make this a little bit bluer. Like a little purple. I like that. That looks good. All right, let's hurry up a little because I don't want you guys to get bored. Another thing that you can do in Figma is easily make your boxes rounded. With this little section up here, corner, it says corner radius. Let's make that like 10. Yeah, 10 looks good. Let's resize it. And what I'm doing here is, why I'm making a box is just to separate the elements. Let's make this a linear, going from like maybe to be more contrasting. Let's make this go instead of from blue to purple, let's go from purple to blue. like that. Keep it desaturated. Okay, let's put in the rest of our icons. Yeah, one day. Whoops. Wait, let's make them light colored again. Make one of them a sun. Make one of them cloud. Oh, can I not use that? Oh, you know what? Okay, maybe I already used the all of the icons that I could. They probably have like a limit for how many icons you can use, and then they make you pay for more. I would advise not paying. It's, I mean, it's $15. It's not worth it. In that case, if I can't do this, I can show off the design that I made earlier right here. So now we're going to be moving this to MIT App Inventor. And I already downloaded the image. So for MIT App Inventor, really the only way to do it is that I've found is to set your design as a background image. I think that worked. Yeah. Okay. And now we go to the screen, which is basically our whole, it's like a frame in Figma. So we go to our background image, we select our image, we click OK. It should work, hopefully. Oh, it's just loading. All right. In the meantime, so did that work? Let's try another file. Yeah. All right. So this is the design we have. If we want to, so normally if we put our buttons here, there's no way to arrange them. They just go on top of each other. And we can't do anything about that unless we use an arrangement. And what an arrangement is just MIT App Inventor's way of saying a grid. So let's find a table arrangement. That should work. Height, let's make it cover the whole screen so we have it fill parent because right now the table is a child of the screen in the hierarchy. So we just have it fill the screen size. And now for columns, let's see the buttons again. Yeah, there's only two columns. So even though the arrangement spans the whole screen, there's only enough room right here for like four things. It's all concentrated in the left. So how we fix that is we go from columns and we change it to like just a bigger number and should have worked now. Okay, it's still a little bit small. I don't know if this is good practice, but I'm straight up just gonna set it to 99. Well, that's a little too much. As far as I know, it doesn't really affect it. So now to so obviously for your designs, you're gonna want to map them out to the uh MIT App Inventor grid and background and screen. So I would suggest just tinkering around with the layout of the elements in your Figma design, exporting them and see if they work in MIT App Inventor. I would also advise using like square buttons that are as big as the little grids in MIT App Inventor and doing this. So I remember it was 45 by 45 pixels. That's how big the buttons were for text. We're gonna make them invisible later, so just like put anything you want in there. And to see if your design elements fit they're like in the same place as the grid elements are gonna be, I would say make one of these buttons over here, place another one there, and just like map out the bounds of the grid. I already did that. That's why these buttons fit well.
你看看前面，你看你是不是上课有没有讲过这样子？我给你亮度弄高，弄亮。哎，等一下啊，亮度弄亮一点。
So let's go back to 45, 45, and right here, visible, we're just going to disable that, and that should make the buttons invisible, but still functional. So you can now program them to do whatever you want. So like this is a settings gear. I could have it open up a settings menu, stuff like that.
Figma.
And that person say Figma. So yeah. Oh yeah. So moving on. So yeah. Once you are finished with your design in Figma, I talked about exporting. You can export here. And hold on. Let me get rid of that just to show you. If you export it without anything in the export section, what it's going to do is say that you got nothing selected, and you're going to be like, wait, what? I'm selecting my screen right now. But don't panic. Just add a plus in the export, and you can choose what file format you want to export as. I chose PNG. And you just press this button right here to export it. Let's see what's next. We did transferring to MIT App Inventor. So later on after this lesson, if you want to try and practice designing an app, you can choose any app idea you want, like finance apps, healthcare apps, music apps, video watching apps, maybe even like games. Feel free to try that out in Figma. And if you want a challenge, try putting it in MIT App Inventor too. But I will just say the process is very annoying. And I'm pretty sure you can type out your questions in chat. If there aren't any, I just want to say thank you for, oh wait. Yeah, the Q&A. All right. I'll just say thank you for attending this crash course. Before we leave though, Tony wants to say something, so I'll let him go.
Obviously, thank you so much for coming and attending the session today. We hope you were able to learn something new about UI and UX. And thank you to our officer, Jason Lee, for leading and teaching this class. But aside from that, what I wanted to say is just to let you guys know that next weekend, we're going to have our Apping Summer Camp. And this summer camp will be hosted by Michelle Yang and Zihan Lee and Richard Xiang. It will be a 3-week course on the basics of MIT App Inventor, but also for you to create a capstone project through that 3 weeks. So by the end of it, you'll have your own app and own product. So I'll be sending out the message in the announcement server of the Apping Club Discord server very soon. And if you haven't already, make sure to join the Discord server. I think here we will share all of our events, our achievements, and all of our information. In fact, we also have our current officer application going out. So if you're interested in perhaps doing a leadership opportunity or even volunteering or creating your own chapter club, all of the application forms are basically here for you to fill out to participate and be a part of the community. All right, so I'll just sending the Discord link in the group chat one more time if you want to check that out. All right, sounds good. All right, if that's the case, I feel like that's all I really wanted to say. And if Jason Lee, do you want to say anything else? If not, then, well, thank you for coming.
I just want to say, where is it? If you want some more resources in UI and UX, I would recommend searching up on YouTube world's shortest UI/UX design course. It doesn't go very in depth, but it does list a bunch of helpful resources for finding icons, images, stuff like that. Yeah, that's all I have to say. And thank you for attending this.
All right, great. Then hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Yeah,
Bye.
see you guys.